Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Pop Culture Yearbook. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the real Manos.
Manos and I just jumped into our time machine, and we've headed all the way back to what year, Manos?
We're heading back, all the way back to 1968.
Once again, into the 60s. This is like the fourth or fifth time we've visited the 60s, Manos.
I know. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's very psychedelic here.
We just can't get away from it. Well, hey, guess what? There's a bunch of stuff that happened in 1968, Manos.
Like what?
Well, for example, it's the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated. It's the year that the Gateway Arch in St. Louis was dedicated. It's the year that the Boeing 747 made its maiden flight. Nixon was elected president. NASA launched the Apollo 7. The emergency 911 service was installed. I didn't realize that it was that recent.
Wow.
The first ATMs were installed. Big Macs went on sale for the first time. And it was the first year for 60 Minutes. Popular films that year included The Graduate, Bonnie and Clyde, The Odd Couple, and Planet of the Apes. And popular musicians that year included Rolling Stones, The Supremes, The Beatles, of course, The Monkees, and The Grateful Dead. And Manos, what exciting thing did you choose for 1968?
I chose a film, and it was a film I just couldn't resist talking about when we were talking about doing 1968. And it is the horror classic Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen Night of the Living Dead, Logan?
I have. It's been a long time, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard not to see Night of the Living Dead. It's kind of everywhere, and that's actually partly because the fact that it's actually public domain. Did you know that?
I did know that. Mm-hmm.
Romero didn't have a whole handle on the whole copyright thing when it came out. And I don't know, somewhere down the line it just fell into public domain. So that means you can see all sorts of wacky versions of this film.
I think even the professor brought that up when he reviewed it.
Yeah.
When we did Who Reviews the Reviewers last year, and that's the only reason I knew about that.
Somebody even did a few years ago an anniversary version where they released it with new footage.
What?
And they found, well, this is what he did. He found the actor who played the first zombie who was still alive. And actually in the last year he's passed away, but he was still alive a few years ago. So they had him in some new scenes. Just to add some spice to this edition. And I've seen something called the animated version where they had the audio and they had animators kind of do their own versions of the scenes. So there's all sorts of and there's you can find it on at dollar stores, at cheap DVDs, part of those package stuff. Actually, that's where I have my copy. Lindsay bought this great box set, which let's see, she got horror, Don't Watch Alone, or 20 films, and 80% of them are terrible. But there's some really good ones on it. Night of the Living Dead is the first one. Night of the Living Dead and House on Haunted Hill and Carnival of Souls are generally on all these public domain packets. And you can often watch them on YouTube. But Night of the Living Dead is, of course, the first modern zombie. Now, of course, there were zombies before this, but it was more of kind of the the classic voodoo type of zombie. There was a Bela Lugosi film called White Zombie, but that was kind of more voodoo-ish and science and evil stuff. But this is like the classic. Well, no, that's not the classic. This was the idea of people coming out of the graves, returning from the dead to eat the flesh and flesh of the living. Now, they didn't get to the brain-eating thing until maybe the 70s. I don't know when they made that switch, but what's so interesting about this film is how simplistic it is. There's no scenes of scientists figuring out the problem, which was pretty much the norm of this kind of film. There'd be the good-looking scientist and the girl friend, and then the general character, and there's stock footage of the army fighting something. And none of that was happening. This actually dealt with the collateral damage, the people who are in the thick of it. And it follows mainly Barbara, played by Judith O'Dare, and Ben, played by Dwayne Jones. And their two people caught up. She was just a woman with her brother. They were visiting their dad's grave in a cemetery where they're attacked by a zombie. Her brother gets knocked out, and she makes a run for it, and ends up in this house with Ben, who had also made a run for it when he was attacked, and they're held up in this house, as well as there's this family that's in an attic underneath. And then, of course, there's another married couple that come in and join them, and they're kind of trapped with zombies all around trying to get in. And the film has a lot to do with just the infighting between the groups. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this situation? And not everything happens well. Now, that's kind of something we've seen in a lot of zombie films. Usually zombie films are really... Actually, I can't think of any zombie films that are about the zombies. With maybe the possible exception of Fido. But this film really kind of just set the tone, and most films are very much like this. I personally, like this a lot. I love kind of the nice, creepy feeling that Romero sets in this film, and he was already ahead of his time when he was doing a lot of social commentary with this film. Of course, is something that's always discussed, and he kept going with actually most of his horror work, like The Crazies and his other Dead films, specifically his later films. I can't remember if his Diary of the Dead. I think is very, very political. Let's see. He also was partly involved with the 1990 remake, which I thought was very good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you liked that. I liked it quite a bit too.
I liked it, and
I'm a big Tony Todd fan.
Oh yeah, Tony Todd is great, and I also like the fact that Barbara is more proactive. Like she's freaking out less. Like she comes out of it much sooner in that. And
oh yeah, good call.
Yeah, she's like freaking out for maybe 10, 15 minutes of the film, and then she kind of snaps out of it. And now, what I like about the 1990 film was, in just as the 68 film, where they're arguing about if they're going to go downstairs in the cellar or if they're going to stay and fight it out in the living room, she has a third plan, which is all new to the remake. She says, why don't we just go and walk really fast away from the zombies? Which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that actually seems more like reality. Like,
I just like how you put that too. It's not even let's run. It's like they're moving really slow. We could just walk fast.
They could mall walk away from them, and she does. She leaves when everything goes crazy. She has a shotgun, I think, if I remember right, and she just stays the heck away from them. And it works for her. But I still enjoy this film. It still holds up very, very well. And if you're like, any kind of horror fan, this is required viewing, really.
Well, and I always liked that movie because, you know me, I'm not a big horror guy, but it has really good social commentary, so there's a lot for me to sink my teeth into.
Yeah.
One of the things I always liked about the slow-moving zombies as opposed to the fast-moving zombies is that because they're supposed to be a force of nature, it feels more like they're a storm on the horizon rather than predators.
Yeah.
So if they're just coming at you because that's what they do, but they don't go any faster because you're there. I mean, it's like a tornado or something.
Yeah.
For a tornado is not going to come any faster just because there's a person there.
That's a good point, and they're all over, and they bite people, and they become zombies. So it becomes a bigger and bigger mess.
That's where the storm metaphor kind of breaks down.
Yeah, I suppose so, but.
I can't recall any tornadoes turning people into tornadoes.
That would have been the sequel to Twister.
That would be great. I would watch that.
Yeah, that would be a good movie.
The like tiny tornadoes just running around.
Oh man, they had to rip out of their clothing.
People get turned into tornadoes.
Yeah,
or maybe, and then we find out at the end that they're all just Tasmanian devils, but we didn't know it.
Or they're people doing Wonder Woman impressions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that's why that music follows them everywhere they go.
Oh, I'm so dumb. There's a convention right here. But yeah, I really do enjoy this film. Now, here's the thing: I'm a big horror fan, but I've never been the biggest zombie fan. There's only a few zombie films that I really, really do like. This one, the '90 remake, the other George Romero ones. I really do enjoy Planet Terror from Rodriguez, but there's I don't know. Zombie films generally are post-apocalyptic films, so I'm not a big fan of post-apocalyptic films. Maybe I'm just a little too optimistic for that. I find them kind of depressing. I know, yes, they're supposed to be depressing. So, it's still, that's just kind of maybe a taste issue. I just, have a hard time, watching anything like that. I will say, I mentioned Fido earlier. I think that's a really good one, and I think it's an underrated one, where it's about this society. It's a very 50s society, and it had a zombie outbreak, and it conquered it, and there's still tons of zombies around, so they have them as pets.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea.
Wow. Well, it would be. Thus the story conflict.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of a comedy, kind of a horror film, where it's about this boy and his pet zombie.
That's so weird. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a really funny film. It does get kind of scary at times, and I recommend that one too. But
I think the only post-apocalyptic zombie film that I really, really enjoyed, not that I've seen a lot of them, but I do really like 28 Days Later, but I think that has a lot to do with just the photography and the cinematography.
Well, yeah, just the filmmaking there. That's just a great film.
It's a really beautiful looking movie. Yeah, but generally, it has to do something spectacular for me to care. Is it like just I'm like you, just because it's post-apocalyptic is not enough to interest me.
Yeah, and it can get a little tiresome. Like, oh, okay, another post-apocalyptic zombie film. Oh, you just have to kind of be, really creative with it.
Well, Manos, today I chose a novel.
Whoa!
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've done a book. I don't think you've done a book.
I have not done a book.
Today I'm going to be talking about Philip K. Dick's masterpiece, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Ah.
This was, of course, the book that Blade Runner was based on. Mm-hmm. And I had never read this, but always meant to, so I decided to take this opportunity. This is, if you go back and read this and you've never read it and you're familiar at all with modern science fiction, a lot of stuff in this it will be very, very familiar to you, because it's all about questions of what life is and whether or not androids can be people and things of that nature. And it was one of the major works that kind of started the science fiction craze of looking at robots and trying to decide whether or not they can be people and things like that. So it's mostly centering around a character named Rick Deckard, who's a police officer. He works for the police, but he's actually a bounty hunter. And he's a bounty hunter who goes out and has to kill robots. And he doesn't make a great living doing this, and so he doesn't have a real animal. He only has an electric sheep. And at the very beginning of this, you're going, why is that such a big deal? And it turns out that because of speaking of post-apocalyptic, Manos, because of a major war from years and years ago, there aren't very many animals left on Earth, and there's a big dust that covers the Earth and makes a lot of people sick and things like that. And in fact, it's not even cool to live on Earth anymore. Space travel is possible. A lot of people have left and live on Mars and other places, and it's actually somewhat taboo to even live on Earth, and the government likes to try to get people to go live other places. But for lots of different reasons, the characters in this either are forced to live on Earth, or they want to for whatever reason. And so if you're there, one of the big social things that people like to do is own animals. It's a big social stature thing because there aren't very many left, and so a lot of animals are either extinct or there are very, very few of them. Philip K. Dick kind of uses this as a way to parallel what's going on with the humans and the androids, because you have a lot of animals a lot of people who can't get animals, or who had animals who died because, of course, because of the atmosphere of the planet now, it's hard to even keep animals alive. So even if you buy one, you can't guarantee that it's not going to eat something that will kill it, or it just won't last very long because of all the dust everywhere and stuff. So a lot of people will buy fake animals. They'll buy robotic animals and try to pass them off as real ones, and that's what he does at the beginning. So his whole character arc is kind of a quest to be able to afford to buy a real animal, and that's kind of the book. And as it goes along, he has this chance to kill several robots, and he starts learning more and more about this robotic culture. And I'm not going to give too terribly much away, because the more you talk about this book, the less worth it is for other people to read it. And I really recommend this. Basically, there's that story going on, and then there's like a second story going on about this other guy who's called a Chickenhead. And there's like this, there's like several people like this who don't have the smarts that most other people have, and a lot of that seems to be because again of the way the atmosphere is on the planet now, and it messes with a lot of people, and they're not as smart as they used to be. It messes with their brains, and he ends up helping some rogue robots, and a lot of the book is about trying to decide whether robots have the ability to be empathetic, and like all of social stature is about with humans is about being empathetic, and that's why robots aren't cool because they're supposed to like not care about anything. They don't even care if they kill, if other robots get killed. They have no empathy at all. And so the way, and this part was actually in Blade Runner. The only way that you know if somebody is a robot is to give them an empathy test. And you ask them all these questions, and depending on how they answer and how quickly they answer, you can tell whether or not there's an android. But what's interesting is that there are all these questions about whether or not it's possible for either a robot to get past the test, where you think it's a human, or for a human to be thought of as a robot and accidentally get killed. And both of those things happen. So anyway, that's pretty much the book. And like I said, I hate to give away too much about it, because it's quite an interesting read. There was recently a comic book version of this put out by was it Boom? Yeah, Boom Studios put this out in 2009. It was a 24-issue adaptation, and when I first heard about this, I thought that it was like an ongoing like sequel kind of thing, but no, it's actually a direct adaptation, and I've had a lot of people really recommend that to me. I've not read it yet, because I just read this book for the first time finally for this. But anyway, this is really important stuff for science fiction history. I think it paved the way for a lot of the kind of android stories that we know these days. You had Asimov before this, but I think this was really important. That's about all I've got to say about it.
It's interesting. Our choices are actually fairly important in the development of the horror and sci-fi genres. Actually,
yeah.
A lot of zombie stories, a lot of android stories kind of followed suit with these two.
Well, Manos, why don't we go ahead and take our time machine and come back to the present?
Sure. We're done.
Our time machine is amazing. It takes no time at all. And Manos, what year are we going to go to next time?
Next show, we're going to go to the year 1989.
Yay! And can you believe we haven't done 1989 yet?
It's crazy. I don't know, what were we thinking?
That's definitely one of my favorite years. I honestly haven't decided yet what I'm going to do.
Well, I have not decided either. I actually have a couple of possibilities, but I'll let you know when we do the show.
Well, good. Well, that's a good idea, Manos. That's probably the time. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for listening to the Pop Culture Yearbook. Hope you learned something. I know I did. And next time we're going to go to 1989. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the real Manos.
We'll see you next time.